Hare Krishna. Okay, am I audible? That's the first thing I need to know. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rimpo. Should I speak louder than this? I'm not in mute. Can anyone hear me? I need to know somehow.
Yes, Prabhuji, we can hear.
All right, okay. Okay, let's resume. I think this is where we stopped. As far as I remember, this is where we stopped. In his Anuvritti explanation of Upadeshamrita, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes that our material identification. Material identification means identification with the material body, creates three kinds of urges: the urge to speak, the urge or demands of the mind, and the demands of the body. So an urge means a demand. When a living entity falls victim to these three types of urges, his life becomes inauspicious. One who practices resisting these demands or urges is called tapasvi, or one who practices austerities. So that gives us a clear understanding of what is an austerity, what is tapasya. It means resisting the impulses of the body and the mind. A tapasvi will never ever agree to just be yourself, You'll never accept that. Because the whole idea is that we are now, right now, we have become puppets of Maya. We've become puppets of Maya. So we are not ourselves right now. And the entire process of tapasya or austerity is to prepare ourselves so that we can become ourselves. By such tapasya, one can overcome victimization by the material energy, the external potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When we refer to the urge to speak, we refer to useless talking, such as that of the impersonal Mayavadi philosophers, or of persons engaged in fruitive activities, technically called karma kanda, or of materialistic people who simply want to enjoy life without restriction. So you have the Anyavilashis, Karmis, and Gyanis. All such talks or literatures are practical exhibitions of the urge to speak. So the urge to speak refers to the urge to communicate our thoughts. In today's world, self-expression is considered a very great, a very, very great and noble endeavor. Everybody is expected to express themselves. But in Vedic civilization, we find that it is not considered such a great activity. It simply produces a lot of difficulty for those who want to progress in spiritual life, or even to become sufficiently self-disciplined to help others, even from the material point of view. Many people are talking nonsensically and writing volumes of useless books. And all this is the result of the urge to speak. It goes without saying that today's social media has simply aggravated our vacho vegam. What's the point in telling the whole world what's in my mind? Why should that be shared with everyone? My mind is just nonsense and my thoughts are just nonsense. To counteract this tendency, we have to divert our talking to the subject of Krishna. This would be a good use of this bad bargain of having the urge to unnecessarily communicate. This is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. Na yad pachaschitra padam harer yasho jagat pavitram pragranita karhichat. Tad vayasanti samushanti manasa nayatrahamsa niramantu shikshaya. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows, since the all-perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode. They do not derive any pleasure there. Tadvag visargo janatagha viplavo yasmin pratishlokam abadhapatyaphi namanyanantasya yashonkitani shrinvanti gayanti galanti sadhavaha. On the other hand, that literature which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes, etc. of the unlimited Supreme Lord is a different creation, full of transcendental words directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. The conclusion is that only when we talk about devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead can we refrain from useless, nonsensical talk. We need a positive alternative. We should always endeavor to use our speaking power solely for the purpose of realizing Krishna consciousness. As for the agitations of the flickering mind, they are divided into two divisions. The first is called Avirodha Priti, or unrestricted attachment, and the other is called Virodha Yukta Krodha, anger arising from frustration. So the first of these two divisions is what is referred to as Manovegam or Manasaha Vegam. And the second is what is referred to as Krodha Vegam. It is Raga and Dvesha, attraction and aversion. Adherence to the philosophy of the Mayavadis, belief in the fruitive results of the Karmavadis, and belief in plans based on materialistic desires are called Avirodha Priti. So unrestricted attachment, or the urge of the mind, or the urge of attraction, refers to these. Jnanis, karmis, and materialistic plan makers generally attract the attention of conditioned souls. But when the materialists cannot fulfill their plans and when their devices are frustrated, they become angry. Frustration of material desires produces anger. Similarly, the demands of the body can be divided into three categories: the demands of the tongue, the belly, and the genitals. One may observe that these three senses are physically situated in a straight line as far as the body is concerned, and that the bodily demands begin with the tongue. If one can restrain the demands of the tongue by limiting its activities to the eating of prasad, the urges of the belly and the genitals can automatically be controlled. In this connection, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Sharira vidya jal, jadendriyata he kal, jivefale vishay sadore, karmadhi jufayoti, lobhamoy sudurmati, akejeta kochina samsare, Krishna Badagarmay, Toyamoy, Puribahari Jikhva Joy, Swaprasad Najalo Bhai, Sayanamrita Khav, Radha Krishna Gunagav, Premadako Chaitanya Nita. O Lord, this material body is a lump of ignorance, and the senses are a network of paths leading to death. Somehow or other, we have fallen into the ocean of material sense enjoyment. And of all the senses, the tongue is the most voracious and uncontrollable. It's very difficult to conquer the tongue in this world, but you, dear Krishna, are very kind to us. You have sent us this nice prasad to help us conquer the tongue. Therefore, let us take this prasad to our full satisfaction and glorify your lordships, Shri Radha and Krishna, and in love call for the help of Lord Chaitanya and Prabhu Nityananda. So with this, we will be able to deal with the demands of the tongue. There are 6 kinds of rasas, tastes, and if one is agitated by any one of them, he becomes controlled by the urges of the tongue. Some persons are attracted to the eating of meat, fish, crabs, eggs, and other things produced by semina and blood and eaten in the form of dead bodies. Others are attracted by eating vegetables, creepers, spinach, or milk products, but all for the satisfaction of the tongue's demands. Such eating for sense gratification, including the use of extra quantities of spices like chili and tamarind, is to be given up by Krishna conscious persons, specifically for those in India who are obsessed with chili, tamarind, and so on. The use of pan, haritaki, betel nuts, various spices used in pan making, tobacco, LSD, marijuana, opium, liquor, coffee, and tea is indulged in to fulfill illicit demands. If we can practice accepting only remnants of food offered to Krishna, it is possible to get free from Maya's victimization. So this requires some practice. We need to go step by step in controlling the urge of the tongue. To take a vow to subsist on grains only when they are offered to Krishna using the correct process. That is very, very helpful. Vegetables, grains, fruits, milk products, and water are proper foods to offer to the Lord, as the Lord Himself prescribes. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhaktya prayachanti. Patram pushpam phalam toyam itself indicates that it is this category of foodstuffs that Krishna accepts. However, if one accepts prasad only because of its palatable taste and thus eats too much, he also falls prey to trying to satisfy the demands of the tongue. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us to avoid very palatable dishes even while eating prasad. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was strict about this. If we offer palatable dishes to the deity with the intention of eating such nice food, we are involved in trying to satisfy the demands of the tongue. If we accept the invitation of a rich man with the idea of receiving palatable food, even if that palatable food has been offered to Krishna, we are also trying to satisfy the demands of the tongue. There are two aspects here. One is activity, and the other is attitude. Advancement in Krishna consciousness is dependent on the attitude of the follower. And attitude includes our desires, it includes our understanding, it includes our conviction. All of these constitute our attitudes. So, possessing or not possessing certain desires, that changes the flavor of the devotional service that we are attempting to engage in. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is stated, Jikhwar lalase jai iti uti dhai, Chishnodar parayan Krishna nahi pai. That person who runs here and there, seeking to gratify his palate, and who is always attached to the desires of the stomach and genitals, is unable to attain Krishna. Straight from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As stated before, the tongue, belly, and genitals are all situated in a straight line, and they fall in the same category. Lord Chaitanya has said, Bhalona khaibear, bhalona puribe. Do not dress luxuriously and do not eat delicious foodstuffs. I think it is, perhaps it is irritating, but I think it is my duty to say that in the 80s and 90s in ISKCON, this principle was do not dress luxuriously. That very much was considered an axiomatic truth. It was understood that those who have taken to Krishna consciousness do not do these things. They do not try to make themselves attractive externally. We want to become attracted to Krishna, Krishna alone. So it was later on in the 2000s we started noticing this phenomenon. Our own members beginning to dress attractively, luxuriously, and so on. Very sad. This is meant to be a society for Krishna consciousness. We cannot cheat our way through, nor can we just foolishly do whatever others are doing. We are individually responsible for having come to this material world. And we have to individually take up the responsibility to go back to the spiritual world. We do not fall down into the material world from the spiritual world because somebody else was falling, and then it's not like some mass movement. Similarly, you cannot actually go back to God just because somebody else is going. Each one has to individually fly his or her own airplane. So these decisions are very important. Do not dress luxuriously and do not eat delicious foodstuffs. These have to be taken up under the guidance of more advanced devotees in a manner that we can progress without regress. Those who suffer from diseases of the stomach must be unable to control the urges of the belly, at least according to this analysis. When we desire to eat more than necessary, we automatically create many inconveniences in life. However, if we observe fasting days like Ekadashi and Janmashtami, we can restrain the demands of the belly. There are certain other days, like the appearance, disappearance days of certain predecessor acharyas that Prabhupada has specified, to be days during which we fast half of the day. These are all important. Gaura Purnima, Nityananda Trayadashi, and so on. It's important. If we do not fulfill at least the minimal obligations, it's a question of going back to God. What does it mean to go back to God? What am I going to do if I'm put in Krishna Loka? I'll simply try to enjoy. And that is surely a way to disturb Krishna. You can disturb Krishna in two ways. You can either try to enjoy him, or you can try to neglect him. Govadhyāga. We are meant to obey him. We are meant to serve him. We are constitutionally his servants. And servants are meant to be servants in the presence of the master. We should not try to become another master. So these fasting days are important. I have to say these things because there are some who even after first initiation and second initiation don't follow these things. That's a joke. No question of making any tangible progress in Krishna consciousness unless we get these basics together. As far as the urges of the genitals are concerned, that there are two, proper and improper, or legal and illicit sex. When a man is properly mature, he can marry according to the rules and regulations of the Shastras and use his genitals for begetting nice children. That is legal and religious. Otherwise, he may adopt many artificial means to satisfy the demands of the genitals, and he may not use any restraint. In the world of Anyabhilashis of today, it is becoming fashionable to promote homosexuality and so on. Ridiculous. Otherwise, he may adopt many artificial means to satisfy the demands of the genitals, and he may not use any restraint. Whether one indulges in illicit sex life as defined by the Shastras, either by when one indulges in illicit sex life as defined by the Shastras, either by thinking, planning, talking about, or actually having sexual intercourse, or by satisfying the genitals by artificial means, he is caught in the clutches of Maya. These instructions apply not only to householders but also to Tyagis, or those who are in the renounced order of life. So you have the Grihasthas and you have the Grihatyagis, those who are situated at home and those who have given up home. Grihatyagis can refer to not just sannyasis but also separated vanaprastha men and brahmacharis. In his book Prema Vivarta, chapter 7, Sri Jagadananda Pandit says, Vairagi bhai, gramya katha na shunibe kani, gramya varta na kohibe jobe milibe ani, swapneyo na koro bhai stri samhashan, vishe stri chadiya bhai asya shobon. Jodi chaho pranaya rakhite gaurangir sone, choto haridaser katha thake jeno mone, bhalo na khaibe ar bhalo na poribe, Hridayate Radha Krishna Sarvada Sevibe. My dear brother, you are in the renounced order of life, and you should not listen to talk about ordinary worldly things, nor should you talk about worldly things when you meet with others. Do not think of women even in dreams. And for women, do not think of men even in dreams. You have accepted the renounced order of life with a vow that forbids you to associate with women. If you wish to associate with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you must always remember the incident of Chota Haridas and how he was rejected by the Lord. A householder is allowed to, as already defined, associate with his own legally wedded wife. And a woman is allowed to associate, as already defined, with her legally wedded husband. Apart from that, their vows of celibacy are identical with the vows for the Grihatyagis. If you wish to associate with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you must always remember the incident of Chota Haridas and how he was rejected by the Lord. Let me take it out. It is here. I think Chota Haridas. One day, Bhagavan Acharya invited Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to dine at his home. Thus, he was preparing rice and various types of vegetables. A devotee named Chota Haridas, Chota means junior, because there was also Haridas Thakur, who was Bada Haridas, senior Haridas. A devotee named Chota Haridas used to sing for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Bhagavan Acharya called him to his home and spoke as follows: "Please go to the sister of Shikhi Mahiti in my name, ask her for a man of white rice and bring it here." Shikhi Mahiti's sister was named Madhavi Devi. She was an elderly lady who always performed austerities. She was very advanced in devotional service. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted her as having formerly been an associate of Srimati Radharani. In the entire world, 3.5 people were the sentiment devotees. The three were Swarup Damodar Goswami, Ramananda Rai, and Shikhi Mahiti. And the half a person was Shikhi Mahiti's sister. Prabhupada explains why she is considered half. That is because she was a lady. It comes here. Remember. Okay. After begging the rice from her, Junior Haridas brought it to Bhagavan Acharya, who was very pleased to see its quality. In great affection, Bhagavan Acharya cooked varieties of vegetables and other preparations dear to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He also obtained remnants of food from Lord Jagannath and digestive aids such as ground ginger and also lime with salt. At noon, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to eat the offerings of Bhagavan Acharya, he first appreciated the fine rice and therefore questioned him, "Where did you get such fine rice?" The Lord asked. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked who had pegged the rice and brought it back, Bhagavan Acharya mentioned the name of Junior Haridas, Chota Haridas. Praising the quality of the rice, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu partook of the prasadam. Then after returning to his residence, he gave the following order to Govinda, his personal assistant: "From this day forward, do not allow Chota Haridas to come here." When Junior Haridas heard that he had been ordered not to approach Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was very unhappy. No one could understand why he had been ordered not to come. Haridas fasted continuously for 3 days. Then Swarup Damodar Goswami and other confidential devotees approached Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to inquire from him, "What great offense has Junior Haridas committed? Why has he been forbidden to come to your door? He has now been fasting for 3 days." The Lord replied, "I cannot tolerate seeing the face of a person who has accepted the renounced order of life, but who still talks intimately with a woman. So strongly do the senses adhere to the objects of their enjoyment that indeed a wooden statue of a woman attracts the mind of even a great saintly person. One should not sit closely with one's mother, sister, or daughter, for the senses are so strong that they may attract even a person advanced in knowledge. There are many persons with little in their possession who accept the renounced order of life like monkeys. They go here and there engaging in sense gratification and speaking intimately with women. After saying this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entered his home. Seeing him in such an angry mood, all the devotees fell silent. The next day, all the devotees together approached the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to submit an appeal on behalf of Junior Haridas. Haridas has committed a small offense, they said. Therefore, O Lord, please be merciful to him. Now he has received a sufficient lesson. In the future, he will not commit such an offense. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, my mind is not under my control. It does not like to see anyone in the renounced order who talks intimately with women. You should all tend to your respective engagements. Give up this useless talk. If you speak this way again, I shall go away and you will no longer see me here. Hearing this, all the devotees covered their ears with their hands and got up and went about their respective duties. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also left that place to perform his noon duties. No one could understand his pastimes. The next day, all the devotees went to Sri Paramananda Puri and requested him to pacify the Lord. Now, Paramananda Puri was a Guru Varga of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this is the system in Vedic culture, that if you want to correct a superior, you have to go to his superior and request him to correct your superior. The superior's superior should correct the superior. Paramananda Puri thereupon went alone to the residence of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Lord, after offering him obeisances, seated him by his side with great respect. The Lord inquired, what is your order? For what purpose have you come here? Paramananda Puri then submitted his prayer that the Lord show favor to Junior Haridas. Hearing this request, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, my dear Lord, please hear me. It is better for you to stay here with all the Vaishnavas. Please give me permission to go to Alalnath. I shall remain there alone. Only Govinda will go with me. After saying this, the Lord called for Govinda. Offering obeisances to Paramananda Puri, he got up and began to leave. In great haste, Paramananda Puri Gosai went before him and with great humility persuaded him to sit down in his room. Paramananda Puri said, my dear Lord Chaitanya, you are the independent personality of Godhead. You can do whatever you like. Who can say anything about you? All your activities are for the benefit of people in general. We cannot understand them, or your intentions are deep and grave. After saying this, Paramananda Puri Goswami, same, left for his own home. Then all the devotees went to see Junior Haridas. Swarup Damodar Gosai said, please hear us, Haridas, for we all wish you well. Please believe this. At present, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is persisting in his mood of anger because he is the independent supreme personality of Godhead. At some time, however, he will surely be merciful, for at heart he is very kind. The Lord is persisting, and if you also persist, his persistence will increase. It is better for you to bathe and take prasadam. In due course, his anger will automatically subside. Having said this, Swarup Damodar Goswami induced Haridas to bathe and take prasadam. After thus reassuring him, he returned home. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to see Lord Jagannath in the temple, Haridas would stay a long distance away and see him. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the ocean of mercy. Who can understand him? When he chastises his dear devotees, he certainly does so to re-establish the principles of religion or duty. After all the devotees saw this example, a mentality of fear grew among them. Therefore, they all stopped talking with women, even in dreams. In this way, a complete year passed for Junior Haridas. But still, there was not a sign of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy toward him. Thus, at the end of one night, Junior Haridas, after offering Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's respectful obeisances, departed for Prayag without saying anything to anyone. Junior Haridas had conclusively decided to attain shelter at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Thus, he entered deep into the water at Triveni, the confluence of the Ganges and Yamuna at Prayag, and in this way gave up his life. Immediately after committing suicide in this way, he went in his spiritual body to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and received the mercy of the Lord. However, he still remained invisible. In a spiritual body resembling that of a Gandharva, Junior Haridas, although invisible, would sing at night for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to hear. No one but the Lord, however, knew of this. One day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inquired from the devotees, Where is Haridas? Now you may bring him here. The devotees all replied. One night at the end of a full year, Junior Haridas got up and went away. No one knows where he has gone. While hearing the devotees lament, the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was mildly smiling. Thus, all the devotees were very much astonished. One day, Jagadananda, Swarup, Govinda, Kashishwar, Shankar, Damodar, and Mukunda all went to bathe in the sea. They could hear Haridas singing from a distant place as if calling them in his original voice. No one could see him, but they could hear him singing in a sweet voice. Therefore, all the devotees headed by Govinda made this guess. Haridas must have committed suicide by drinking poison. And because of this sinful act, he has now become a Brahmana ghost. We cannot see his material form, they said. But still we hear his sweet singing. Therefore, he must have become a ghost. Junior Haridas chanted the Hare Krishna mantra throughout his entire life and served the Supreme Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Moreover, he is dear to the Lord and has died in a holy place. Haridas cannot have become degraded. He must have attained liberation. This is the pastime of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You will all understand it later on. A devotee returned to Navadvip from Prayan and told everyone the details of Junior Haridas' suicide. He explained how Junior Haridas had made his resolution and had thus entered the waters at the confluence of the Yamuna and Ganges. Hearing these details, Srivas Thakur and the other devotees were very surprised. At the end of the year, Shivananda Sen came to Jagannath Puri as usual, accompanied by the other devotees, and thus in great happiness met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Srivas Thakur inquired from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where is Junior Haridas? The Lord replied, a person is sure to achieve the results of his fruitive activities. Swakarma phalabhu puman. It's the exact statement. This is from Vishnu Purana, first chapter. Everybody will certainly face the consequence for engaging in a sinful activity. That's the implication. Then Srivas Thakur related the details of Haridas's decision and his entering the waters at the confluence of the Ganges and Yamuna. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard these details, he smiled in a pleased mood and said, if with sensual intentions one looks at woman, this is the only process of atonement. And all the devotees, headed by Swarup Damodar Goswami, concluded that because Haridas had committed suicide at the confluence of the rivers Ganges and Yamuna, he must have ultimately attained shelter at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the son of Mother Shachi, performs his pastimes, which greatly satisfy the ears and minds of pure devotees who hear them. This incident manifests the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. His teaching that a sannyasi should remain in the renounced order and the deep attachment to him felt by his faithful devotees. It also demonstrates the glories of holy places and shows how the Lord accepts his faithful devotee. Thus, the Lord fulfilled 5 or 7 purposes by performing one pastime. The pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are like nectar and they're deep like the ocean. People in general cannot understand them, but a sober devotee can. Summarizing this chapter, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati also says that one should derive from it the following lessons. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is an ocean of mercy, he nevertheless gave up the company of one of his personal associates, namely Junior Haridas, for if he had not done so, pseudo-devotees would have taken advantage of Junior Haridas's fault by using it as an excuse to live as devotees and at the same time have illicit sexual connections. Such activities would have demoralized the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and as a result, devotees would surely have gone to a hellish life in the name of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. By chastising Junior Haridas, the Lord set the standard for acharyas, or the heads of institutions propagating the Chaitanya cult, and for all actual devotees. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to maintain the highest standard. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed that a pure devotee should be simple and free from sinful activities, for thus one can be his bona fide servant. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught his followers how to observe the renounced orders strictly. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to prove that his devotees are exalted and that their character is ideal. He kindly accepts his faithful devotees and teaches them how much tribulation and disturbance can be produced by even a slight deviation from the strict principles of devotional life. By chastising junior Haridas, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited his mercy toward him, thus showing how elevated was junior Haridas's devotion for him. Because of this transcendental relationship, the Lord corrected even a slight offense committed by his pure devotee. Therefore, one who wants to be a pure devotee of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu should give up all material sense gratification. Otherwise, the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are very difficult to attain. If one dies in such a celebrated holy place as Prayag, Mathura, or Vrindavan, one can be relieved of the reactions to sinful life and then attain the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although a pure or faithful devotee may fall down, he nevertheless ultimately gets the chance to go back home, back to Godhead by the mercy of the Lord. Specifically, death in a holy dham is extremely beneficial. Extremely beneficial. If one dies in Vrindavan, then either he will go back to Godhead in that lifetime. Of course, if he's following the regulated principles and everything, then he will go back to Godhead in one lifetime. Or if he commits some forbidden activities, then he'll be punished with one lifetime of being in an animal body in Vietnam. And at the end of that life, he'll go back to God. Prabhupada is clear about that also. Dham has unbelievable, extraordinary potency. The conclusion is that one who can control these 6 items, speech, mind, anger, tongue, belly, and genitals, is to be called a Swami or Goswami. In today's world, we can say these are 6 instinctual impulses. And when we can control these impulses, then we are fit to be referred to as Swamis or Goswamis, which is a preliminary requirement. Swami means master. Goswami means master of the go or senses. When one accepts the renounced order of life, he automatically assumes the title of Swami. This does not mean that he is the master of his family, community, or society. He must be master of his senses. He must be the master of his bodily and mental impulses. Unless one is master of his senses, he should not be called Goswami but Godas, servant of the senses. Following in the footsteps of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, all Swamis and Goswamis should fully engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. As opposed to this, the Godasas engage in the service of the senses or in the service of the material world. They have no other engagement. Prahlad Maharaj has further described the Godas as Adanta Go, which refers to one whose senses are not controlled. And Adanta Go cannot become a servant of Krishna. It's no question of attaining devotional service to Krishna with pure love for him if we cannot even control these 6 urges. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj has said, Matirna Krishne Paratasvatova Mithobi Padyeta Griham Vratanam Adanta Gobhir Vishatanta Misram Punah Punashcharvita Charvananam. For those who have decided to continue their existence in this material world for the gratification of their senses, there is no chance of becoming Krishna conscious, not by personal endeavor, not by personal endeavor, by instruction from others, or by joint conferences. They are dragged by the unbridled senses into the darkest region of ignorance. And thus they madly engage in what is called chewing the chew. So, until we become factual Goswamis, we are not eligible to come to the platform of pure devotional service. And therefore, Prabhupada says, a bona fide disciple has to be a Goswami. A bona fide master also has to be a Goswami. A Goswami Guru can benefit a Goswami Shishya and make him into a pure Vaishnava. Of course, a pure Vaishnava can make others into pure Vaishnavas. That's something we'll learn later on. Okay, So that completes text 1. We'll move on to text number 2. Bhaktir Kantak Ki. What are obstacles to bhakti? Kantaka literally means a thorn. What are thorns on the pathway towards pure bhakti? Atyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha janasangasya laulyam cha shadbhir bhaktir vinashyati. Okay. By these 6 activities, overeating or too much collecting, over endeavoring, idle talking, too much attachment to or too much neglect of the rules and regulations, association with worldly minded persons, and ardent longing or greed, devotional service is destroyed. Once devotional service is spoiled, when he becomes too entangled in the following 6 activities: eating more than necessary or collecting more funds than required, over endeavoring for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain, talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters, practicing the scriptural rules and regulations only for the sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement, or rejecting the rules and regulations of the scriptures and working independently or whimsically, associating with worldly minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness, and being greedy for mundane achievements. First of all, I'll take up. Here is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has given his own word meanings. I'll read it out and give a running translation. Atyahara, adhik sanchay ba aharan, overeating, over collection or overeating. Prayasa, bhaktir pratikul cheshta. Prayasa literally means endeavor, and here it refers to endeavors which are unfavorable to bhakti, to the development of bhakti. Prajalpa, anavashyak ramya katha. Prajalpa refers to Gramya Katha, vulgar talk, anavashya, unnecessary vulgar talk. Gramya literally means village. Gramya Katha means village talk, which means talking about others' material activities. Their eating, sleeping, making, different. Just uncivilized talk. Not talk about how people are making progress in spiritual realization. Niyamagraha, swadhikaragata niyam varjan, evam anya adhikaragata niyam graha. Niyamagraha means to give up the regulations relevant to one's fitness and to accept regulations that are relevant to others' fitness. So corresponding to our eligibility or fitness, we are expected to accept certain regulations, certain prescriptions, prohibitions, and allowances. And for those who are more advanced than us, there will be a different set of prescriptions, prohibitions, and allowances, a different set of regulations. For those who are less advanced than us, there will be a different set of prescriptions, prohibitions, allowances, a different set of regulations. So to not be situated in one's own status and accept the prescriptions, prohibitions, and regulations appropriate to one's current status, that is one of the factors which can destroy our attempts to progress in Krishna consciousness. Janasanga, Vishayi, Srisangi, Tatak Sangi, Mayavadi, Dharma Dhvaji, Pravriti, Krishna, Abhakta Sangha. to associate with those who are not devotees of Krishna, such as sense enjoyers, Vishayis, sinful people, Stri Sangis, those who associate with women, Tatat Sangi, those who associate with men who associate with women, Mayavadi, Dharmadhvajis, religious hypocrites, those who portray themselves as being very religious, but in fact are quite unreligious in reality. Laulyam cha, asat krishnamay mot grahan chanchalyam. To be to have convictions that are constantly shaking, to accept ideas that consist of thirst for the impermanent, and this itself manifests in the form of a flickering acceptance of Krishna consciousness, and a flickering when you don't accept Krishna consciousness, then you accept these other ideas, which are simply expressions of one's own thirst for the impermanent. Chandu bhakti vinashyati. H-O-I-T dosh dana bhakti vinashlapare. Through these 6 defects, bhakti attains destruction. Upadesha prakashika. Idanim sadhakachitasya dadrisha abhyasa abhava prakritattvena tad avasthayam eva bhakti vinashaka prasadhakani atyahara iti dvayena. Because the mind of a sadhaka is not practiced in Krishna Bhakti, and it is materialistic. Therefore, in the materialistic state of life itself, one should be aware of what destroys bhakti and what develops bhakti. To its what brings forth the development of bhakti to its fruition, to its success. So Sri Rupa Goswami teaches this, those which destroy bhakti and those which develop bhakti. Even when the mind of a sadhaka is in a materialistic state of life. 2 verses. First, he takes up that which destroys bhakti. Prayasaha, Vishaya Udyama Kleshaha. Prayasa, endeavor, refers to the distress of accepting labor in order to attain sense objects. Prajalpo vrithaiva tattannindadi vag adambara. Prajalpa refers to useless flourish in words in order to criticize particular personalities and so on. Niyamagraha. Prakrite Vaishayika Niyame Agraha. To have an agraha or eagerness with regards to the regulations, material regulations for attaining sense objects, yadva or else. Yasya kasyapi bhaktiyanga niyamasya agrahanam. Or to not accept the rules and regulations pertaining to the bhakti angas, the various items of devotional service. Sadhakasya raga abhava. Because the sadhaka does not have a spontaneous attraction to engaging in devotional service. Vidhinapi tat agrahe tal lobha ityartha. If one does not accept these items of devotion service, even according to the rules and regulations of the practice of devotion service, then that is a problem. Janasangascha. Sangascha ya samsruter hetuhu sangam na kuryat pramadasu iti sangam na kuryat shocheshu ityadibhi sarvatraiva nishiddha. Janasanga refers to association with people in general. This has been forbidden in several statements of the scriptures. Yes, samsruter hetu. Okay, wait, I think that this is so important, I should trace it out. For time being, let me just move it up so that I can search for it also immediately. Okay, here is the verse from 3.23.55. Sango yas samsruter hetu asatsu vihito dhya sa eva sadhushu krato nisangatvaya kalpate. Association for sense gratification is certainly the path of bondage, but the same type of association performed with the saintly person leads to the path of liberation, even if performed without knowledge. The association of a saintly person in any way bears the same result. For example, Lord Krishna met many kinds of living entities, and some treated him as an enemy and some treated him as an agent for sense gratification. It is generally said that the gopis were attached to Krishna for sense attractions, and yet they became first-class devotees of the Lord. Kamsa, Shishupal, Dantavakra, and other devotees, other demons, however, were related to Krishna as enemies. But whether they are associated with Krishna as enemies or for sense gratification out of fear or as pure devotees, they all got liberation. That is the result of association with the Lord. Even if one does not understand who he is, the results have the same efficacy. Association with a great saintly person also results in liberation, just as whether one goes toward fire knowingly or unknowingly, the fire will make one warm. Devahuti expressed her gratefulness, for although she wanted to associate with Kardama Muni only for sense gratification, because he was spiritually great, she was sure to be liberated by his benediction. Sangam na kuryat pramadasu. Sangamya kuryat pramada sujatu yogasya param paramarurukshu matse vaya prati labdhatma labho vadantiya niraya dvaramasya. One who aspires to reach the culmination of yoga and has realized his self by rendering service unto me should never associate with an attractive woman. For such a woman is declared in the scripture to be the gateway to hell for the advancing devotee. The culmination of yoga is full Krishna consciousness. This is affirmed in Bhagavad Gita. A person who is always thinking of Krishna and devotion is the topmost of all yogis. In the second chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also stated that when one becomes freed from material contamination by rendering devotion service to the Supreme Personality of God, he can at that time understand the signs of God. Here the word pratilabdhatma labha occurs. Atma means self and labha means gain. Generally, conditioned souls have lost their Atma or self, but those who are transcendentalists have realized the self. Those who have regained the self, pratilabdhatma labha. It is directed that such a self-realized soul who aspires to the topmost platform of yogic perfection should not associate with young women. In the modern age, however, there are so many rascals who recommend that while one has genitals, he should enjoy women as much as he likes, and at the same time he can become a yogi. In no standard yoga system is the association of women accepted. It is clearly stated here that the association of women is a gateway to hellish life. The association of women is very much restricted in the Vedic civilization. out of the 4 social divisions, the brahmachari, vanaprastha, and the sannyasi, 3 orders are strictly prohibited from the association of women. Only the grihasthas or householders are given license to have an intimate relationship with the woman. And that relationship is also restricted for begetting nice children. If, however, one wants to stick to continued existence in the material world, he may indulge in female association unrestrictedly. Sangam na kuryat shotyeshu. Sangam na kuryat. Teshu ashanteshu mudheshu. Khanditatma swasadhushu. Sangam na kuryat shotyeshu. Yoshit kridam mrigeshu cha. One should not associate with a coarse fool who is bereft of the knowledge of self-realization and who is no more than a dancing dog in the hands of a woman. The restriction of association with such foolish persons is especially meant for those who are in the line of advancement in Krishna consciousness. Advancement in Krishna consciousness involves developing the qualities of truthfulness, cleanliness, mercy, gravity, intelligence and spiritual knowledge, simplicity, material opulence, fame, forgiveness, and control of the mind and the senses. All these qualities are to be manifested with the progress of Krishna consciousness. But if one associates with the Shudra, a foolish person who's like a dancing dog in the hands of a woman, then he cannot make any progress. Lord Chaitanya has advised that any person who's engaged in Krishna consciousness and desires to pass beyond material nescience must not associate himself with women or with persons interested in material enjoyment. For a person seeking advancement in Krishna consciousness, such association is more dangerous than suicide. Now, tathasya bhaven moho bhadraschanya prasangataha. Yoshit sangat yatha pumso yatha tat sangi sangataha. The infatuation and bondage which accrue to a man from attachment to any other object is not as complete as that resulting from attachment to a woman or to the fellowship of men who are fond of women. Attachment to women is so contaminated that one becomes attached to the condition of material life not only by the association of women, but by the contaminated association of persons who are too attached to them. There are many reasons for our conditional life in the material world, but the topmost of all such causes is the association of women, as will be confirmed in the following stanzas. In Kali Yuga, association with women is very strong. In every step of life, there is association with women. If a person goes to purchase something, the advertisements are full of pictures of women. The physiological attraction for women is very great. Therefore, people are very slack in spiritual understanding. The Vedic civilization, being based on spiritual understanding, arranges association with women very cautiously. Out of the 4 social divisions, the members of the first order, namely Brahmacharya, the third order, Vanaprastha, and the fourth order, Sannyasa, are strictly prohibited from female association. Only in one order, the householder, is there license to mix with women under restricted conditions. In other words, attraction for women's association is the cause of the material conditional life. And anyone interested in being free from this conditional life must detach himself from the association of women. So association is a very important factor. There are several statements, and association with the general populace has been prohibited all over the scriptures. Laulyam, chanchalyam refers to the state of being fickle. Tena vyabhicharu lakshyate. And this indicates that there is adulteration in one's practice of Krishna Bhakti. In other words, he sometimes engages in Krishna Bhakti, and sometimes he engages in sinful activities, sometimes engages in karma, sometimes engages in jnana. Various activities having various motives. And sometimes he's Dr. Jekyll and sometimes he's Mr. Hyde. Tasyapi Ushali Chanchalatva Vat Kadapi Jnane Kadapi Yoge Kadapi Bhakto Pravritatva Vinasha Hetu. Just as Ushali, just as an adulterous woman is fickle. He goes one night to one man, another night to another man, another night to another man, and so on. So like that, sometimes one pursues the pathway of jnana to attain the result of jnana, and sometimes one pursues the pathway of yoga to attain the result of yoga, and sometimes one pursues the pathway of bhakti to attain the result of bhakti. By extension, it is implied that one sometimes pursues the pathway of karma to attain the result of karma, and sometimes one pursues the pathway of sinful activities to attain the results of sinful activities, which is immediate material happiness, I mean happiness in this very life. So because one does this, these activities will cause destruction of devotional service. Okay, then Bhaktivinoda Thakur's paraphrase of this verse, we will see it in the next session. Is suicide justified for devotees like Chota Hari Das? Yes. Or somebody like Chota Hari Das, who was capable of doing things like that. He was very, very attracted to the service of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, therefore he took such drastic steps. How one should control the genital urges within Grihastha Ashrama? One should first of all engage in Krishna consciousness. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is the ideal for Grihastha Vaishnavas, and he himself demonstrated how one can be a responsible householder in full-fledged Krishna consciousness. His wife Bhagavati Devi was equally interested in spiritual progress, carrying out her husband's instructions to the fullest extent also. We will see. We will see in these two verses, text number 2 and text number 3 of Upadeshamrita. They're filled with a lot of understanding compressed within just those two verses. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given us a whole process. He has explained each and every one of these 6 items. 6 items that downgrade us, 6 items that upgrade us. And he has explained it in such a manner that both the Grihasthas and the Grihatyagis can progress. There are some common procedures which everybody needs to adopt. And then there are specific duties for the householders and specific duties for the renunciants. We will see that. Bhaktivinoda Thakur will explain. So then gradually the 6 urges come under our control. There's so many things that need to be done in family life in accordance with the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And you will see that it is just a different infrastructure. A home is basically expected to become like a temple. Initially, we accept Krishna into our life, into our daily life. Then later, we are expected to make Krishna the very center of our daily life. And then finally, we have to come to the point where Krishna is, we have nothing in our daily life except service to Krishna. So step by step, we need to progress. Prabhupada made it very, very simple, following certain indications given by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Husband and wife, they are meant to be very strictly following the teachings of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and they should take shelter of the holy names of Krishna. They should engage in deity worship. They should study Bhagavad Gita. They should assist in the propaganda of Krishna consciousness. I'm talking about whom we refer to as congregation. Those are financially independent of ISKCON and who stay outside ISKCON campus. They are meant to become financial partners in the preaching. Prabhupada had a standard. They are meant to donate 50% of their income in Krishna service. If 50% is unimaginable, consider 25%. If that is also unimaginable, consider 12.5% or 10% or 5%. Start with something. That money should leave you. And to propagate Krishna consciousness, we actually require 4 things. Actually, more than 4 things. Land, labor, capital, organization, and of course, you require purity. But one can become a financial partner in broad-based preaching of Krishna consciousness by contributing money. Land refers to property. Labor refers to human resources and different types of resources. Land, labor, capital is money, and organization. And things have to be organized. And you need purity. You need to endeavor also. That's another thing. You need to endeavor to preach. Preaching is hard work. It is kirtanam. It is the most important activity that we can engage to glory and to serve Krishna. Amongst Navavidha Bhakti, kirtanam is most important. And Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur have given us a whole lifestyle. In the temples, we have a morning program and an evening program, and during the day, we have activities of propaganda, preaching. That should be replicated at home. If one cannot participate in temple activities on a regular basis, then one should replicate it at home. One should have one's own morning program, evening program, and daytime. Also, those who stay at home, they should have deities. They should serve the deities very seriously. There are also many unnecessary things which attract our attention, and it would do good to get rid of things like television, many things. You don't need to make spiritual progress even more and more difficult. On one hand, we want to become attracted to Krishna. On the other hand, we want to remove unnecessary distractions from Maya. And on top of this, all of this, we need to progress in chanting in a regulated manner. In a regulated manner means we increase our chanting without decrease. Quality of the chanting is also significant. Just living next to a temple, if you cannot follow all these things at home, then it will be worth it to consider living next to a temple where these activities are going on nicely. Then at least you can attend the Mangalarati in the temple, work out your own schedule, and take advantage of instructions from more advanced devotees who know your spiritual history. That way you can progress. When you progress in our chanting, and we are careful about all the different aspects of Krishna consciousness, Krishna will certainly help. Krishna is eager to help us. And the moment we give him an opportunity to help, us, he will immediately come knocking at our door. Very important. And all of that will lead to a reduction of the force of these 6 demands. That will be something that we can directly perceive. It's not something mystical. When you increase your chanting, then many things are directly experienced. The power of the holy name is directly experienced. Prabhupada clearly said that couples must engage in sexual activity in order to beget children minimal amount of time, which means once a month until the wife becomes pregnant. And before engaging in sexual activity, they're meant to chant 50 rounds of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Of course, you do something like that, your mind becomes very sattvic. It's good. It's good. It's good. Children are born. The attitude a child exhibits at the time of puberty reflects the state of consciousness the husband and wife have at the time they conceived that particular child. I was just reading that 2 days back, Narada Purana, directly says that. Directly says that. So we should take help from Krishna primarily by chanting and by serving more advanced devotees. That is also very important. Sometimes it may feel hopeless, but we should understand that when we serve more advanced devotees and take shelter of Krishna by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Krishna will certainly help. Krishna understands our difficulties more than we understand. And he is very eager to help. So we should accept his help. What is the process to meditate on the holy name? Because I observed that while chanting, the mind is not listening to us. It is simply going here and there. I was reading in the Japa book, we should not try to meditate on full mantra. First, we try to meditate Hare, and then Krishna, then Rama, like this. We chant loudly. Prabhupada kept it very simple. We chant loudly in a prayerful attitude. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says we should remember the meaning of the mantra. Essentially, the mantra simply means, my dear Radha and Krishna, please engage me in your devotional service. Sitting and chanting, that helps. If by closing our eyes and while sitting and chanting we fall asleep, then it would be useful to walk like this. We pray to Krishna and Krishna will help you. Krishna will help. For devotees who are studying, working, for them association with material people is mandatory. How can we deal with them? We can't talk Krishna consciousness things, right? Bhaktivinoda Thakur will explain what is the meaning of association. Association is, in this context, refers to affectionate association. And that is a killer of devotional service. This mechanical association, just to do the bare that is required to survive in this world in order to progress in Krishna consciousness, that is not considered association. We will see that in Bhakti Aloka. Bhaktivinoda Thakur will explain that also. I am repeatedly asked by the many youth that regarding Bangladesh issue, why it happened to him. He is a devotee, right? Krishna did not protect him. Apparently, this is about that devotee who was killed by the people, the Muslims. First of all, we should not have some fantasies and propagate these fantasies amongst ourselves also. In the 70s, there was an Indo-Pakistan war. There was a war between India and Pakistan. And there's a journalist who's asking Prabhupada about his thoughts about that. And Prabhupada says, when the bombs fall on us, we will consider that these bombs are representatives of Krishna. Prabhupada does not say that now we are chanting Hare Krishna, and therefore these bombs will not fall on us. He doesn't say things like that. This is a miserable world. But when we practice Krishna consciousness, Krishna spiritually helps us. Take, for instance, somebody like Vritrasura. He's a very exalted devotee named Vritrasura. He was Chitraketu in his past life. He was cursed by Parvati Devi. And in his next life, he appears like an Asura. But he's a pure devotee of Lord Sankarshan. is fighting with Indra. Indra kills Vritra. Throughout Vedic scriptures, Indra is considered hero. But in Srimad Bhagavatam, Vritrasura is considered hero. Very ecstatic description in Srimad Bhagavatam. Externally, it looks like, what is this? Indra just killed Vritrasura. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has explained that Vritrasura actually died before he left. The soul of Vritrasura actually left before Indra killed him. He was in Samadhi, in full Krishna consciousness. So there are many things which we may not be able to understand. Just externally, if we see, we won't be able to understand what is the status of a particular person and what is the result that Krishna has bestowed upon him. Just externally, we see somebody is coming and disturbing, and then we think Krishna is supposed to protect us from the external nuisance. But that is not the meaning of Name Bhakta Pranashyati, always. Devotee will never perish in his spiritual progress. Not necessary that externally, suppose some flood comes, and that because I am chanting Krishna, Rama, therefore I will not drown in the water. What is that? Expecting some magic? Take to Krishna consciousness because of some magic? How am I so greatly qualified that the magic is supposed to happen to me? Not like that. I thought somebody asked a question. Anyway, Prem goes in the room.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavad. Prabhuji, I'm not sure, maybe you might have answered this, I'm not sure, I might have missed, but I just want to ask about this Chota Haridas issue. Was it his going to Shiki Maiti's sister when this happened, or it is some other incident that happened?
He went to Shiki Maiti, Madhavi Devi's home. He went to Madhavi Devi's home. So what is the problem with that?
I mean, he was not supposed to go there for begging alms, for begging rice or something, or?
He glanced at the woman. No, Lord Chaitanya says he glanced at the woman.
So I
He
mean,
glanced with desire.
Oh, okay.
You know,
So
Lord Chaitanya is. It's
yeah,
not
so
just glancing, it's glancing with a desire. A desire that, that is the crime.
So he glanced at desire with Shiki Maiti's sister, is it? That's what it is?
No, it doesn't look like him. Prabhupada said that, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said that some young woman. She was an elderly lady, so obviously it means she must have had some younger assistants.
Which must have happened before he went to beg this rice, I presume.
Well, must have happened at that time only.
Okay.
Okay.
One more thing, Prabhuji. In the last class, you mentioned this. I was just noting it down, but after that, you just progressed, so I couldn't note down the details. You mentioned about these 4 things: Prem, Maitri, Kripa, Apeksha. I was not very sure in what context you mentioned it. Prem, Maitri, Kripa, and Apeksha.
Upeksha.
Yeah, what was that about?
Madhyama Vaishnava has 4 duties. Prema, Maitri, Kripa, Upeksha. There are also features found in Uttama Vaishnava, but in a higher manner. But for Madhyama Vaishnavas, these are duties. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. If there are further questions, you can bring it up in